Welcome to Carol and Gary's See America Tour.
Hello again, everyone. On Thursday, July 8th, Carol, Jasper, and I drove south from Burlington, Vermont to Barre, Vermont, a suburb of Montpelier, the state capital. I don't know why the state capital doesn't appear on this map. On Friday, July 9th, Carol and I visited the state capitol in Montpelier. On the way up the stairs to the Capitol building, Carol noticed a marker documenting a flood that occurred in November 1927. Carol is standing on her tiptoes and still can't reach the line on this marker. I googled this flood and found that 84 people died during this flood. Anyway, back to the Capitol. Vermont became the 14th U.S. state on March 4, 1791. Vermont is the second least populated state and the sixth smallest state by area. Vermont has 150 members in their state House of Representatives, which they refer to as the lower house. Representatives are elected to a 2-year term, but there are no term limits. Vermont has 30 state senators, which they refer to as their upper house. Each state senator is elected to a 2-year term, and again, there are no term limits. The governor has a ceremonial office in the State House and a private office in another building nearby. The governor, like other state offices, is elected to a 2-year term with no term limit. This is the third State House of Vermont. The first, which was built in 1808, was outgrown by 1836. The second was destroyed by fire in 1857. The third, which is the current State House, was completed in 1859. As we walked around the State House, we couldn't help but notice the ornate trim work around the doors and windows. Although the Vermont Capitol building was small, our self-guided Vermont State House tour was very educational. On Saturday, July 10th, Carol and I visited Rock of Ages, a granite quarry in nearby Graniteville, Vermont. Although New Hampshire is called the Granite State, Vermont has much deeper deposits of granite. This is the Granite Quarry. If you don't think this is a large, deep hole, look at the 2 cranes in the bottom left corner of this picture. Men used to be lowered down into a work area in one of these cages, and then they would mark a cut with holes drilled into the granite. These holes were spaced 4 inches apart. The workers would then insert these 3 small metal strips into one of the holes near the middle of the block that they were planning to remove. By tapping on the center pin, it would expand the outer metal strip, putting pressure on the hole. With all of these holes, the granite was already weakened, so it didn't take much to break the pieces apart on a clean line. Our tour guide said that they would tap on the center pin and then wait a few minutes. If nothing happened after 3 minutes, they would tap the center pin again. You can see the drill holes on this discarded block. Today they start a cut by drilling pilot holes in the block. These holes will become edges, determining the length, width, and depth of the block. Then long wire saws with metal junctions that contain diamond fragments are fed through the pilot holes. The wire saw is then mounted to a motor to draw the saw through the holes at high speed. The motor is slowly moved backwards, forcing the saw to cut the granite as it goes. After the block has been cut, one of 2 ways is used to tip the block. In the first way, a machine with a long steel wedge attached pushes the block until it tips. The trouble is that the block can break when it hits the ground. By dumping sand and dirt near where the block of granite will land, it creates a softer landing. The second way to tip the cut block is by inserting a heavy metal bag in the slot created by the wire saw and fill it with air or water. This cut block, weighing as much as 25 tons, is then loaded onto a truck for transport to the factory, where it will be cut again as many times as needed. A tour of the factory was included in the price of admission to Rock of Ages, but the factory tour was closed during our visit, while workers completed some expansion upgrades. It was suggested during our Rock of Ages quarry tour that if we wanted to see some of the granite monuments created by stonemasons in the area, that we should drive to nearby Hope Cemetery. So on Sunday, July 11th, after checking to ensure that dogs were allowed in Hope Cemetery, we took Jasper for a ride to the cemetery. Hope Cemetery was established in 1895 with the intent that it be a showplace for the artists and craftsmen of Vermont's granite stone trade. A pamphlet was available at the entrance to the cemetery pointing out notable gravestones, but we had trouble finding some stones and found others that were similar to the ones that we couldn't find, so I'm going to just point out some of the interesting features of the stones we saw. Both sides of the entry into Hope Cemetery were long walls of granite. On the right side of the entry was a statue of the Virgin Mary holding a Bible and a lily. Some of the monuments I'm going to show you were for a large family, while others are for a couple. This stone had an intricate carving in the middle of it. This monument contains intricate carvings on either side of its door. This monument had intricate carvings of flowers. Here is a monument with 4 large columns. I'm intentionally blocking some of the monuments behind this one, but notice that the stone was carved to resemble river rock on the side of a house. This monument was placed for a local stock car driver who was killed in a snowmobile accident in 2014. This stone was placed for a local soccer coach. This stone was made to look like a tree stump, a style that became very popular in the 1880s. The next monument was a chain design, representing the linking of 2 families. This monument honors someone's service in the Civil Air Patrol. And this monument engraved with Lila and Archie's likeness is probably my favorite of all monuments that we looked at. If I wanted to remember someone, what better way to do that than with a likeness of their face? This monument shows a lady standing on the left side, watching her husband ride off on a motorcycle on the right side. And finally, this monument shows a silhouette of a lady sitting with her husband behind her. On Monday, July 12th, Carol and I drove 15 miles north of Barre, Vermont to visit the Ben & Jerry's ice cream factory in Waterbury, Vermont. Our plan was to take a factory tour to watch ice cream being made, but due to what was called major on-site construction and COVID restrictions within their plant, tours have been suspended until mid-October. Outside window service was available if you wanted to order ice cream, so Carol ordered a waffle cone filled with chocolate chip cookie dough, but I'm a diabetic, so I declined ice cream. Ben & Jerry's has a mock cemetery set up on property so you can pay tribute to their retired flavors, or as they call them, the dearly departed. After walking through the Flavor Cemetery, Carol and I returned to our motorhome. Well, this is going to have to do it for our second week in Vermont. We will be leaving for New Hampshire on Thursday. Vermont is the 43rd state that Carol and I have visited together. If you like this video but have not yet subscribed, please do so to be notified of future videos, and as always, feel free to share with your friends. Thanks for watching!